Hello again, class. All right, tonight we're going to continue to talk about some plumbing business. We'll get back to the business that we started with last week. Now, as I told you last week, this is not anything that is out of a textbook. This is really my own experience. I went into business officially around 1977, and in 1984 I started teaching. So that was what, 7, 8 years of business full time. And before that, I did some moonlighting for a number of years before I went into business. And then probably another about 10 years part time after I was teaching, um, including the time I was a building inspector and plumbing inspector. Uh, I think I've been out of business probably since the mid 90s, except for family, family and friends, which we're going to get to in a minute. Okay, so I still do work at my own house, and someday I'm going to have to put in a basement bathroom. I just got done with a kitchen sink faucet past few weeks and changed all the toilets and so on. Sink a few months ago. Okay, so anyway, let's get back to business. I was talking about how you set up an account at your local supplier, which you absolutely need. Now, if you want to buy material from other sources other than the half a dozen or so, or less, maybe 4 or 5 local suppliers, that's your business. But remember one thing, you deal with some of these national chain stores. We'll just leave it there. Uh, I've been told by a few people that work for them that sometimes what you think you're getting is not the same as like what our suppliers carry. And even with the tools like Burns Saw, for example, for those of you who want like quality tools and you know that you're going to get like the best, I'd go to Burns Saw as opposed to some of the chain stores. It looks like the same tool, but in talking with former students more than 20 years ago, actually, when I worked down in Newport, um, not always the case. And plumbing is the same way. And employees have told me that if the number, like on the box, is the same, it's probably the same. If the number is slightly different, watch out because it might not be the same thing. Okay, so we're talking about material. I was talking about in the last class that comes out of your supply houses, right? Our supply houses. And most of our supply houses have maybe 3, 4, 5 branches uh, that you can also deal with, which is very convenient. Okay, let's get into a little bit more on this business. How are you going to conduct your business? You get your account set up, and just like a credit card, they try you out at a few $1,000s or whatever the limit they set for you, and you get your price. Now, here's another thing you should remember. And I did not know this until after I was in business for a long time. You may have an account with a supplier, any one of them, and in fact, it was another plumber told me this story, not the supply house. They never told me this. There's different codes for different shops. Like if you're a big shop, done business with, we'll say, a supplier for many years, been very good, paid your bills and all the rest of it, they're going to work off a different code than for somebody new like you that's just coming in. In other words, there's two different prices for the same item, even though you both have an account, a plumbing account or heating. Okay, um, you can ask about it, but when you're trying to set up an account, you're not in a position where you can make your own terms. They don't have to deal with you. Also, I didn't mention this. When you deal with our other supply house, all our suppliers, my advice is to get an account at all of them. And here's the reason: one of them might carry Kohler. Another one will carry American Standard. It used to be Universal Rundle. I think that's gone. But you get the idea. Each one of them has a certain franchise. A lot of the big manufacturers don't want to have um, 3 or 4 suppliers within a few miles of each other, beating each other up for sales, right? Maybe 2 in the same town, but usually they just stay with one. So you might want to have an account at different supply houses so you'll have access to all the different manufacturers, plumbing manufacturers. And the other thing is too convenience, especially if you're a local guy who stays very much in the area. You got Robinson over on Broadway, Southeast Supply right in the center of the city on Plymouth Ave. You got Simon's on Cambridge Street, right? So they're scattered around, and sometimes you're close enough that you could just pop into any one of them um, and use your account. Also, try to rotate it a bit. Now, everybody probably has a favorite, and I did it, and I saw my father did the same thing. Even if it's you might have to go out of your way a bit. Try to keep all the accounts active, because if you don't use the account for a year or two, they will close it on you. Right? It's a pain in the butt for them to keep you on the books and you're not using the account. So every once in a while, pop in, say hello, buy a few things, even if you have a favorite. Okay, that way you can keep everybody happy, keep your account open. And what you're going to find is, and I am not going to mention any names on this one, but different prices. PVC pipe. There's one supplier. This was going back 30, 40 years. Um, they would give you 55 off on PVC, which sounds like a big deal. You go to New Bedford, and the same company might give you 60 off. The same company, different branch. I never heard of that before. Now, if you go to a place like Seacon, I'll mention their name because they were the best for dealing with buying pipe and fitting. Seacon Supply, I think it's out on Route 6 going out towards, I think it's just into Seacon or over the Rehoboth line, but the name is Seacon Supply. It's out going out towards the racetrack. And they were 80 off. That was phenomenal. 80 off is like half the price of 60 off, right? It's terrific price. But I wasn't going to get into that tonight as far as discounts go. But that is the best I ever dealt with. So if you're competing with somebody and you get 80 off, or they get 80 off, and you're only working at 55 or 60 off, the price of your PVC is twice of what theirs is, which is going to affect your bottom line or your bid. You're going to have to ask for more money. Might cost you the job. So shop around, and also when you're buying bulk, like you're buying, I used to buy copper tubing, 100, 500, maybe 1,000 feet at a time, and get a really good price. These days, you're probably dealing more with PEX or CPVC or whatever. PVC, of course, I also used to buy that in bulk. Don't get too comfy with one supplier. I did this, and I didn't realize it, but I was paying a premium for that friendship. And we used to go out to breakfast once a week. But that breakfast cost me a lot of money because one day I got a phone call from somebody who was just cold. I think they call it prospecting, cold prospecting. It was somebody who I knew who had worked in a supply house and became a salesman. And he was just calling around to see if he could get some business. And he mentioned some prices. I almost choked. His prices were like 10, 15% better, at least, than what I was paying for copper tubing in bulk. And when I called my supplier after that, I didn't at the time. I didn't place an order. My guy said, without missing a beat, he said, "Oh, I can match that," just like that. I was like, "Well, why didn't you? Why did I have to get a price from somebody else, a competitor, before you would give me your best price?" So be careful. Um, don't get too comfortable with one supplier. Every once in a while, check out, make sure you're getting a good price. All right. Okay. Uh, so we're in business. Get your account set up. Now, where are you going to start? How are you going to get this business? Now, if you've been doing a little bit of, well, actually, you can do this right now. You can do heat and you can do well pumps legally. You don't need to break the law. So if you want to, we're going to talk like you're doing it legally, right? You want to do a little plumbing, that's your business. But you're setting up a business, get your accounts all set up. Um, I don't know if the license is going to be an issue, but just be aware that I don't know how much the supplier is going to want to deal with you if you're going to be doing plumbing and they know that you don't have a license. You can say you're going to be doing heat, you're going to be doing well pumps, but watch that one. Okay, right off the bat, who's going to hire you? You're 21 years old, 20 years old. You really don't have a whole lot of time in the trade, obviously. And why would they hire you rather than a company that's been around forever doing this business with insurance and licenses and all that? There's only one reason they're doing this, is because you're going to be less money. Now, how much are you going to charge? My advice has always been the same. I would find out what the going rate is. Now, I don't know what it is because I'm not working anymore for customers. Let's say it's $125 an hour. I think you should be getting half of what the going rate is. That's my opinion. You can go from there, but I don't want to hear that you work for like $15 an hour. Um, Charge a certain amount and don't vary it like a sliding scale depending on how well you know somebody, because it's going to blow up in your face one day. And it was a friend of mine that I worked with at Diamond years ago, and I liked his policy. I mean, I was already teaching school by then. I had already been actually out of business full time. And he said what he did is he had one price. That's it. And the only one that he charged anything different was like a close friend, or maybe, obviously you don't charge your mother, but a close friend. And then he didn't charge anything. It was just the material, and let the friend help you. Okay? So it's either all or nothing. And I think that's great advice. Right? It keeps you out of trouble. Which brings us to another subject you got to watch out for. And I haven't seen this in the code book either, or anywhere else for that matter. When you start out, you're going to have to probably start out with friends and family. What else are you going to do? Unless you're quite the promoter. And you can't send out ads that you're going to be doing plumbing. And you can't have business cards or anything without your number on it legally. So that's a problem. The heat part of it and the well pumps, okay. So, friends and family, good luck even getting half price. But work it out. And what you want to do as soon as you can, get away from the friends and family. Get away from them. Here's what you're going to find. Some of you guys that are watching this, if you do watch it, you older guys that have been around, probably going to be chuckling at yourself because this is happening to you. You work for friends and family, no price is low enough. It comes with perpetual care, like a cemetery plot. They have to take care of it forever. So you put something in, and the water heater gives out in 5 or 6 years. Well, must be something wrong with it. It's like you own it forever. So get yourself away from the friends and family as much as you can. Okay? You're much better off being known to your customer as a professional tradesman, even if you're working moonlighting. All right? As soon as you get too close to them, they're going to be offended when you charge money. I'm telling you, don't do that. Keep your distance and be aware if it's somebody you really hit it off with. And just be aware that if you do get friendly with them, you're probably not going to be able to charge anymore. Right? So consider that. All right. Now, when you show up at the job, meet the customer, and you tell them, this happened to me many years ago, 1973. I had my first house, and I needed an electrician. And I think it was my uncle who worked down at the Navy base, and he had a buddy that worked there as an electrician, Navy electrician. And he said he's good. Now remember, the Navy base in Newport is federal property. The local inspector, that would be Newport or Middletown, because it straddles both, I believe. It might even go into Portsmouth. I think not about Portsmouth, but anyway, that's federal property. The local inspectors have no jurisdiction on federal property. They have their own system of code, inspections, and so on, and I don't know what it is. So anyway, this friend of my uncle's uncle came over to see me when he used to work on weekends. And now this was going back so far that this was before they even had building codes in Little Compton. It was like the Wild West. Your cat could do the job. There was no inspection. There was nothing. And so I didn't need somebody with a license. And he showed up, nice guy, introduced himself. And right off the bat, he said, here's how I work. I never forgot that. So many dollars an hour, cash when I'm done for the day. It wasn't like, and he didn't beat around the bush. He was very straightforward. And I like that. And it's my advice to you. Let the people know up front what you expect, how much you charge. You want the payment, whenever it is. My advice is to get it right up front. And I mentioned this in this last video briefly, but I'll mention it one more time. Remember, if you're doing plumbing in particular, you don't have insurance. You can't have insurance because nobody's going to insure you to do something that's illegal. And that's very illegal, working without a license. So you have no recourse whatsoever to collect this money, right? Like the bookie who gets stuck for some money. We could go to the police, tell them the guy didn't pay me. What are we doing? Well, the bookie, obviously, the bookie's not going to get any money. Neither are you, right? You're putting in plumbing illegally. And when I was in night school as a student back in the early '70s, my night school instructor told us a horror story of a guy that did a big job, big moonlight job, like a whole bathroom, and piping, not just replacing fixtures. And when he got done, the guy said to him, "Okay." When he gave him the bill, he said, "Let me see your license," knowing full well the guy didn't have a license. And I don't, it's been over 40 years. I don't remember how it ended, but I don't think it ended well. So keep that in mind. You're at a disadvantage when you're moonlighting. And the other disadvantage is, should something go wrong, you start a fire, you flood the place, whatever, uh, you don't have insurance to cover it. So be very, very careful when you're moonlighting. Okay, so you set your terms in advance. You do the job. Okay, the job I'm not going to talk about tonight. We've been talking about that all season. Get your job done, and you told them what your terms were. Now, in those terms, if it was a small job, you might say, like this guy did, he worked by the hour, by the day, I guess you could call it. And so when he came to my house, like on a Saturday, usually a Saturday, because he rewired the whole house. I had what they call this, a BX. It's like that flexible metal wiring you see around boilers. My whole house was wired with that, which was aft knob and tubing. Some of you guys might have seen it. It's like porcelain knobs with two wires that run parallel to each other. That was big back late 1800s, early 1900s. And then they went, I guess, to BX, that flexible cable that you see pulled all through the house. And then somewhere, maybe in the 30s, maybe the 40s, they went to Romex. My father's house, 1949, had it was just two wire like Romex, well, almost a cloth covering on it with no ground wire. And then it went to the Romex as we see it today with the plastic wiring, um, maybe in the 60s. I don't know when that started. It was already out there when I came into the trade and came into plumbing. So he rewired the entire house. And when he came to my house, I knew the terms. He trained me. I had the cash. At the end of the day, I knew about what it would cost, plus material, of course. He charged me for material as he went along. And just peeled off the 20s, and everything went fine. And when he finished, when the house was done, thank you very much. See you later. Okay, so be sure that everybody knows what your terms are. Some people are I never was comfortable talking money. This guy had no problem at all. He was like, he was one of those tell you like it is whether you want to hear it or not either. That's a plus when you're in business. So once you set your terms, stick with them. Don't like wimp out and, oh, that's okay. Yeah, another month or two is okay. No, it's not okay. You got to pay your bills. Your suppliers don't let you slide, right? They have terms. When a certain day comes, right, you go from being okay to being late, and now you're going to owe a penalty. You're going to have to pay a penalty. Okay, so if you're going to be sending them a bill because you don't know how much it's going to cost, get the bill out as fast as you can and in the mail or online, however you're going to send it. The better way to do it is to go to look at the job first and give them a price, right? Some guys have books. The only problem with this is you got to keep updating it because prices keep changing all the time. We'll say a water heater, $1,000, right? That'll cover labor and material. Changing a kitchen sink faucet, a certain model, you'll have a price. We'll say, I have no idea, say $300. Okay, that would be one way to do it. Another way would be, and that I did mainly, was time and material, however long it took, plus the material, which you should mark up, right? You don't want to be working for just labor. Uh, Flat rate, that's the name I was looking for. Flat rate would be like so much for, just like auto you go to have a transmission replaced, engine replaced, they could probably give you a price up front, or a brake job, something major in your car. They can quote you a price, right? Especially at a dealer. Some guys do that. I never did, because you have to keep updating. But if you do it, you could tell them, how much it's going to cost. They can agree to it, and you can get some money up front. Now, there was a guy, I knew the guy, but I hear the story secondhand, and he got burned from somebody who had an office in Boston, and he burned him for like 30 grand many years ago, when 30 grand would be like closer to like 100, almost buried him. And this guy went from being pretty lax about paperwork to being like a little overkill. After that, he'd show up to price a job, and he'd charge for the estimate, right? We'll say $25 or $50 for an estimate. And if he got the job, he'd deduct the 50 off the bill. And he actually could handle credit cards like when nobody else was doing it. So that's a little bit extreme, but still, after you get burned, you tighten right up on your business end of it, the plumbing. So let them know what your terms are and stick with it. Send your bill quickly, or give them even better, give them a price up front, or give them the bill as you're leaving, right? Which sometimes can be hard. But if you can estimate it before you even do it, do that. And if they ask you, I remember my father telling me this, and of course I experienced it too. They'll ask you, do you want some money? Like when you're doing the job, before you even give them the bill, say, sure. And, work out how much they want to give you. Now, when it comes to a job like new house, for example, or a major renovation, as in like the whole house, I think everybody used to go 2/3 at the rough, when the rough was finished and inspected, and 1/3 at the finish. Hold have as little as possible at the finish, because that's the one you're gonna have trouble getting. Usually you get the rough because they need you back to do the finish. All right, so try to get 2/3 up front for the rough, and then 1/3 at the finish. If you can get more than that, like 1/3 at the beginning before you start, knock yourself out. Good for you. I used to just wait and get 2/3 at the rough. Now at the end of the job, the finish is what, maybe a day, day and a half. Get quite a few fixtures, but your tubs are already in. Tub shower, that's already in. But there is some money there. Okay, heat, a little different. I used to do heat half and half. Heat because all the material was up front, right? You pretty much hooking the whole system up. So it used to be half and half. Now, let's say those are the terms. They agree to them, of course, and they do the job, and then it doesn't work out. You don't get your money. How does that work? What I would say is give them a week or two after when they're supposed to pay. For example, at a finish of a plumbing system. Okay, you finish it today, you get your inspection. You're expecting a check. You don't get it. A week goes by. Well, some people would be on the phone right away. You could wait a week or two and call up, ask me, hey, how's everything going? How's everything working out? Yeah, I could use that check, or something like that. Oh yeah. I'll get it in the mail tomorrow, right? Yeah, tomorrow doesn't come. Call them again another week later. Be a little less friendly, and so on. After 2 or 3 phone calls, obviously you're not getting your money, right? That happens. So what do? You got a number of options here. Let's go over them. Okay. One option is to get a lawyer. I'm going to dismiss this one quickly. Unless it's a very big job, I would say don't get a lawyer. They're going to take at least 1/3, up to 40%. All right. Plus, if it's a small job, and small to them, it's like probably $3,000 or $4,000. 30% of that. How much time is a lawyer going to put in? They're charging you probably $200-300 an hour. That's going to go. They're going to go through that in a hurry. And if it goes to court, it's not going to be worth it for either of you. So I would rule out the lawyer. If it's a big enough job, okay, but it's expensive. So let's get rid of the lawyer. Small claims court. Okay, you all know what small claims court is. Now I've been there. I've been there once. I almost went twice. The one time I went, my ex-brother-in-law sent one of his junior, he wasn't a partner at the time. He was a new lawyer. This is back in 1980, and he came to court with me. Now you don't need a lawyer in small claims. That's why they have it. But he can go, and the lawyer stood in back of me, kind of like my consultant. And so it was me and the other guy, the guy I was taking to court, and the judge up on a bench up high, very impressive desk. And every once in a while, my lawyer would kind of whisper something in my ear. But he knew his boundaries, right? The reason they have the small claims court is so you don't have to pay the lawyer. What's the problem with small claims? Well, the problem is there's a limit on how much you can get from small claims. It used to be around $2,000. I don't know what it is today. Maybe say three. And obviously, a lot of jobs go more than that. Now, you're doing moonlight work. You can't take it to court if it's plumbing, right? Because you're, again, breaking the law. If it's heat, well pump, okay, I guess you could. I think it's possible. But this is probably going to be after you're in business. But in any case, small claims court is an option. Now here's what you do you go and file at the courthouse. Let's see, it was a district courthouse at the bottom of Rock Street, I think it was. It's not there anymore. The building's there, but the courthouse has moved to Main Street. I believe that's where I fill out the paperwork. And what you have to do is you got maybe 5 or 6 lines, and you have to print small or write small, longhand, and fill out what happened. And you have to be very concise. You can't have any fluff in there. You got to get right to the point. This is what happened. Uh, they agreed to these terms. I did the job. They didn't pay. Okay. In my case, it was a water heater. He went from a 5-year heater to a 10-year heater. In those days, back in 1980, it was only $100 difference. It was, as I recall, it was an electric water heater. And I had it in my contract. Fortunately, I had it written in the contract, 5-year heater. He went to a 10, which was smart. It was the same price to install. And we got in front of the judge, and the judge said, I told him what happened. And he said, yeah, he went from a 5-year to a 10-year. And it was like, why are we here? He put in a different heater, and now you're not paying him. The judge didn't give him a lecture. What he said was, I'll take it under advisement. And we left. The lawyer and I went back to the city. This was in New Bedford, by the way. Kills half a day. And eventually I got a check for $100. So I won that one. And then that was, 40 years ago. Then 12 years ago, I had another one. It actually was, I took him to small claims court because it was a former student who was, a long story, I don't want to get into all the gossip, but I had bought a step ladder from him for $50, which was well worth it. It was a fiberglass ladder. And then I bought a extension ladder from him for $100, but I didn't get the ladder. And he borrowed my chop saw. I didn't get it back. And anyway, on and on it went. But he owed me like $650 that I was out. And I went to small claims, filled out the paperwork at the courthouse, and I was waiting to hear from the court. When the court date would be, and I got a call from New York City. It was People's Court. And if you ever wonder, is People's Court real, or any of those Judge Judy or any of those other ones? The answer is yes, they are very real. They asked me if I'd be interested in going on People's Court rather than taking it to small claims. And I said, sure. So they had the paperwork. I guess they have somebody that, I don't know if they physically go to the courthouse or they do it online. I don't know. I have no idea. But the way it works is they check cases that look like they might be of interest to put on TV. And then they get in touch with the people, and they move very fast because they tell you that they have to do this and be done with it before it would normally have gone to court. So it's got to move quick. And they do. So next thing you know, they call the other guy. He said he's in. Back and forth, a lot of phone calls, paperwork back and forth to New York. Next thing you know, I'm on a high-speed train to New York City, and it's on People's Court. Presented my case to Judge Marilyn Millian. She's the Judge Watt. You guys that are older might remember Judge Wapner. She took his place years ago. Anyway, she heard my case. The other guy, explained his version, and he just looked bad. Again, I'm going to get into the gossipy stuff, but I won the whole case, and she gave him a good lecture on TV, and that was it. So, any chance of going on People's Court, don't count on it. That's the only case I know that ever went to People's Court. But that's where those cases come from. They go through the court files, and they don't have to be plumbing. Obviously, this was actually some stuff he stole. I mean, he just didn't deliver what he said, and then he like kept my chop saw, and there was some other things. So that's how that worked out. And there were some other people that he had stuck. That he somebody he worked for. He did work on the side, pocketed the money when he was representing the company. Um, he was bad. He was very bad. And I was lucky I got the money. Now, here's the other thing. When you get a decision in your favor, like I did, the person that loses the case doesn't pay a penny. The money comes from the TV company, from the production company. My check came from California, Ralph Edwards Production, about 3 months after it was on, was filmed, and it doesn't play for a couple months. So I got all of my money. He didn't lose anything. We both got train tickets to New York City and $50, like walk around money. So that's how those TV shows work. Okay, anyway, getting back to real life here. Um, so you can do the small claims court. Now, there's only a few other ways to get your money. Collection agency, a legal collection agency, somebody you can find online or in the phone book, right? These guys work according to the rules. They know what to say. They know how to make people feel guilty. They can't call in the middle of the night and all that. These are legitimate collection agency. And I used them just once. And I got 60% of my money. So let's say it was a $2,000. I was out 2,000. I could not get the money. And this contractor, he was just no good. He was one of those guys that puts jobs together, but he doesn't get his hands dirty. A lot of guys do that, which is fine. And he stuck everybody. Um, I didn't think I was going to get the money. So I tried this collection agency who was recommended to me by Robinson Supply, a lady that worked there. This was many years ago. She's about 1985. And 6 months later, I got a check in the mail, about 60%. How they got money out of this guy, I don't know, but they were supposedly a legal collection agency, which leads us to the final way to collect money. And I don't recommend this. You can be your own collection agency, right? Meaning that you can threaten somebody. Um, I don't recommend it because you can get in trouble legally. You just can't go and threaten people. I was on a job where the mason, that was me, the mason, the electrician was out over this is way back in the 80s, $3,500. I was out 1,000, and the mason was out a couple of thousand, and he told the owner um, that if he didn't get paid, the owner was going to die. So the owner went home, got his money, and Mason was taken care of. Now, when you think of a Mason, not really a diplomat, usually pretty burly, tough guy, and this guy was. He got his money. I ended up having that was the one time I used my no, the second time I used my brother-in-law. He himself came to court with me. It was regular court. We took him to court, and I got $800 out of 1,000 that I was owed at a time when 1,000 was like probably 3,000 today. And the reason I didn't get more was because my contract was not airtight. There was a couple of holes in my contract where I wasn't as clear as I should have been on particular items. But still, $800 was pretty good. And my brother-in-law, didn't charge me. Okay, the last one is a collection agency that's not in the phone book. Okay, I think you know what that is. Maybe somebody pays them a visit. You'll get your money, just like if you remember in The Godfather. Um, they have a way of convincing people that they should pay up, and they might not even charge you, not today, but you'll owe them forever. Also, um, you can get in trouble if it can be proven that you use these people to collect money. Obviously, you can get a lot of trouble with the police. So I would avoid all of those. They're funny, good stories and all that, but stay clear. In fact, one last story. Um, I'm going to have to make this quick because I'm going to be running overtime. This guy owed me a couple of $1,000s back around Well, back in the 80s, when it was, like a couple of thousand, then would be like at least 6,000 today. And I was going to take him to court. And actually, that was a job where I got the collection agency where I got the $2,000, and I ended up getting 1,200. I got 60%. This is the same job. Before that happened, I went down to the police station in Middletown, where he was from. The job was in Dartmouth, and I had to send him a letter. Oh, it was a big pain, but I did everything that they told me to do before I gave them like a folder with all this stuff in it. And month, 2 months went by, and I got a call, come and get your stuff. I said, okay. So I went down there to get it, and the a policeman, he had a different uniform on than the other guys in the at the station. I think he was like the night chief or whatever. It was at night, and he said, we can't do anything for you because this took place in Dartmouth, where the crime or whatever he called it, where the exchange of the check and all, or whatever it was. And he was right. And I was trying to tap dance it. No, I got the money in Middletown. No, he didn't want to hear it. He said, what you need to do is go to the state police in Dartmouth, go to the police in Dartmouth, which I did, and I got nowhere. And as he gave me the folder, um, he said, have you thought about going to Federal Hill? Federal Hill is where the New England Mafia had their headquarters. I don't know if they're still there. I said, no, I have not thought about going there. He said, think about it, and gave me my folder back. Of course, I did not go to Federal Hill, but it was interesting having the cop. Now, did anybody witness this? No, nobody heard a thing. And it was so many years ago. They were still, I don't know if they're still in Providence. Federal Hill, in under that pineapple up in there. That's where they used to do business. Okay, so much for business. We're just definitely out of time. So I don't think I'm going to be talking to you guys tonight.